Since it seems like we've gotten all of the good low grip and drift tuning cars for the foreseeable future here in GTA Online, I wanted to make a quick video going through the 10 overall best cars for drifting based on my personal opinions and all of the time that I've spent testing them. So this video is going to be split up into 2 unranked lists with 5 of the best low grip or stanceable drift cars first, then 5 of the best drift tuning cars, all while showing some basic information about each car and their upgrades on screen. Now if you guys are looking for more guidance on how to build a drift car and drift it to its maximum potential, I do have plenty of guides linked in the description and in the pinned comment for you to reference, and I will probably also be making some more guides in the near future. So if you guys like what you see here, please do consider liking the video and subscribing. And now we're gonna jump into this top 10 list. Alright, so first up we've got what I think is the absolute GOAT of low grip drifting, the Dubachi Masacro or Masacro race car. This in my opinion is the best overall package for low grip drifting, especially for intermediate and advanced drifters. It's pretty powerful and fast but reasonably controllable, it's got a good weight and grip balance, and it also holds decent angle. Regardless of the style of drifting you're doing, whether it's simple slow drifts or faster competition layouts or tandems, the Masacro can handle it without much headache. Now the only big flaw with this car is that it was unfortunately removed from purchase from the online websites, so you can't buy this car unless it happens to be available on the casino podium, the LS car meet, the dealerships, or if Rockstar decides to temporarily add it back for purchase. I'm really hoping that they show it the love that it deserves sometime soon. Next up we've got the Bravado Redwood Gauntlet, which is also a pretty underrated low grip drift car. Now the Redwood Gauntlet actually feels pretty similar to both the Dubachi Masacro that we just discussed and also the Rapid GT, which I actually wanted to feature in this video but chose against it because it was another removed website vehicle. Thank God the Redwood Gauntlet wasn't removed because this car drifts incredibly well. Although it can sometimes run out of angle fairly easily, it is pretty easy to drive fast because it's got higher power and it's also got a super consistent mid-drive speed boost, and it has enough grip to feel both smooth but also agile and responsive when it needs to be. Another added bonus is that this car is completely free, so there's really no reason for you to not go out and grab one and give it a try at drifting as soon as you can. And then we've got a pretty legendary drift car that's been in the game for almost a decade at this point, which is absolutely crazy to say. Of course you guys know the Bravado Banshee 900R. You guys have likely heard about this car many times over if you were a part of the community before drift tuning was a thing, and luckily today this car still does hold its own. The Bravado Banshee 900R is by far the fastest and most capable drift car with the mid-drive speed boost because it has an insane amount of power and is super slippery when it's stanced. It can drift extremely fast with a lot of angle, but it still is generally tough to control. I'd say the 900R is one of those cars you sort of have to graduate to after you get a lot of practice drifting slower and more forgiving cars with a mid-drive speed boost, so I'd say it's definitely not for the faint of heart or really any inexperienced players. But again, once you get that practice and once you do get to the point that you're adequately able to control this car, it is a ton of fun to drift. Next up we've got another car that I definitely don't drive enough but still absolutely love, the Dinka RT3000. This car gives off major Banshee 900R vibes due to how rowdy and powerful the car is, but I'd say the RT3000 is a bit more forgiving and easier to control. It has an insane amount of power with a strong mid-drive speed boost and holds great angle, but it can be a little bit snappy and prone to oversteer due to the general lack of grip over the rear tires. I can't recommend this car for beginners just because of how touchy it can feel and because it does love to be drifted faster rather than slower, so for you guys with a bit more experience with low grips, I'd say you'd have an absolute blast in this car. And rounding out this list of the best low grip drift cars is the Karen Fudo GTX, which I believe to be the best beginner drift car in GTA Online. Although this car is pretty pricey, it still offers quite a lot of options for customization and tuning a drift setup that you can use for beginner, intermediate, and advanced level drifting. And of course this is exactly why I use this car in the bulk of my low grip drifting tutorials that I made a couple years back. The Fudo GTX is a great overall package when it comes to drifting because it's got great angle, lots of power, a consistent mid-drive speed boost, and it can be both smooth and agile at the same time. If you're just getting into drifting and you've got some extra coin lying around, I would definitely give the Fudo GTX a shot. Now one honorable mention I'm going to throw in here is the original Karen Fudo. Although this car isn't the most competitive or powerful low grip drift car out there, it still handles pretty well, it's got good angle and power, plus it's on the slower side, so I'd say it's another good beginner drift car for you to learn the basics in. And for those who might not want to spend as much money on a starter drift car like the Fudo GTX, which I think is like 200 times the cost, I'd say by far the Fudo is the best bang for buck drift car in the game, both for drifting using low grips and also with drift tuning that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I would highly recommend grabbing one of these cars if, again, like the Fudo GTX, you somehow don't own one already. Then moving into the best drift tuning cars, first off we've got a tried and true higher level car, the Annis Remus. This car definitely takes a bit more finesse to drive, but is extremely rewarding once you get the hang of it. It's a smaller and lighter car with a bit more grip, which means it feels faster and easier to tandem competitively, but because of its grippy nature, it does tend to feel a bit more prone to understeer and needs a lot of left foot braking to keep things fluid and smooth. Beyond that, the Rimac has good power to make it usable when drifting at most speeds. Of course, considering this car's styling, customization, and solid performance that I just talked about, I think it makes sense why it's consistently been one of the best drift tuning cars in the game, and I'd say it's definitely worth checking out once you get a little bit more experience drifting the drift tuning cars. Keeping with some familiar drift tuning cars that we've talked really highly of in the past, we've also got the Anna's ZR350 on this list once again. The best way to describe this car is just solid. It's not perfect, but it does everything it needs to pretty well. It's not as fast as some other cars, but still holds its own in terms of power. It's reasonably light and agile while still having predictable and smooth handling, and it has great customization and overall street cred to top it all off. While it won't be the most competitive high-level car, it is great for beginners to practice with, or just to chill and get some smooth tandems going. I'd say the ZR350 is definitely one of the better jack-of-all-trades type drift tuning cars that really anybody can have fun with. And then we've got the new kid on the block here, the Dinka Jester Classic. Now, I raved about this car early on after it came out, and even a couple months later after driving it pretty consistently, I still do think it's easily one of the best drift tuning cars in the game. Now, you guys might remember that this car, along with the Rune Cheburek, were two of the recent drift tuning cars Rockstar added where they forgot to nerf the effects of pre-applied power upgrades, meaning that equipping the engine, transmission, and turbo upgrades before applying drift tuning on these cars made them significantly faster, and as of the making of this video, that still hasn't been patched yet. So given that, the Jester Classic is easily the fastest and rowdiest drift tuning car that we have, and it is an absolute breeze to link together longer drifts in tandem competitively in this thing. This car's higher weight and slightly softer suspension than something like the Rimac does make it feel a little bit less agile and a bit more boaty, but still extremely smooth and generally, as I said, very easy to drive. I also have tested this car without any pre-applied power upgrades just to see what the car would feel like if it were nerfed, and even in that slower state, it still felt amazing. So I'd say regardless of if this car ever gets patched, I'd say it's a must-own drift car. And next up, we've got another fairly recent drift tuning car, the Benefactor Vorslaghammer, or Vorslaghammer. I honestly can never say it right. Feel free to correct me down in the comments. Now, I was stuck between featuring either this car or the Volker Nebula Turbo as my pick for a slightly slower but smoother car that's great for chill tandems, but ultimately the Vorslaghammer won out for just being a bit more fun to drive. Although this car is on the heavier side and definitely feels a bit boaty compared to the other smaller and faster sports cars that we've seen, it's still very satisfying to drive. It's got the torque to keep longer slides going and has enough grip to feel maneuverable despite its higher weight. My only complaint with this car is that it can feel a bit understeery at times due to its softer suspension, but nothing really that would kill its handling too much. If you vibe with this style of car and you're willing to spend the money on it, and you can also ignore some of the arbitrary customization that's added to the outside and inside of this car after the drift tuning upgrade is equipped, I think it is a solid candidate for one of the better drift tuning cars in the game. And rounding out this list of the top 5 best drift tuning cars is the Annis Euros, which actually feels pretty similar to the ZR350 all things considered. The Euros tends to feel a bit more grippy but has a similar amount of power to the ZR350, so while it can't link together drifts as smoothly, it still is very responsive and snappy when it needs to be, and generally has less understeer because it's got a stiffer suspension. In this way, I guess it's also like the Rimac a little bit because it is a very point and shoot type car and can be competitive with enough practice. If you are looking for a forgiving car that's easier to get into more technical drifting with, I'd say the Euros is the way to go, and it obviously does benefit as well from having great customization like we've seen with the other LS Tuners DLC cars that we've talked about in this video. And of course, again, I couldn't close out this video without mentioning the OG Karen Fuda once again, as not only is this car an amazing bang for buck low grip drift car, but it also happens to be the cheapest drift tuning car as well. You can either find this car on the street or buy it for $9,000 and be off and running for just over $200,000 after you equip the drift tuning upgrade. And even at that price point, you're really not losing out on the full experience either. While this car generally does feel a bit sluggish handling wise because its suspension is so soft to the point that it kind of just body rolls everywhere, it still does have good power and is relatively easy to drift smoothly regardless of skill level. I'd say if you're just getting into drift tuning and you want the full experience for pretty cheap, the Fudo is a great car to get you started with the basics. So that is a wrap on what I think will be my absolute last video covering some of the best drift cars that exist here in GTA Online in 2025. So hopefully this video gives you a more condensed look at some of the standout cars that you could still have a ton of fun drifting with depending on your chosen style. I will probably make another video going through and ranking all of the drift tuning cars in specific, but I do think it's pretty crazy that the next video is similar to this one will probably be in GTA 6, so fingers crossed that day comes sometime anytime soon. Obviously, I will be making some other videos here in GTA 5 in the meantime, so feel free to subscribe and stick around for that content, and also do consider leaving a like on this video and dropping any feedback or questions down below in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you guys a ton, and I will catch you all in the next video.